Welcome back to another rant with your boy, Charles. Today I want to talk about the concept of waking up. I think the most direct way will be to start with a baseline, though, in order to kind of describe what waking up may be, because I'm sure we've heard of it. Being awake, being awoke, all these things have been very popular in pop culture the last several years. So to clarify that, why don't we start with a baseline of what it might mean to be sleeping or asleep. So with that in mind, I have gone a little deeper on this concept in a prior video, so I would check out the concept of sleeplessness and its stages if you want to see a little bit more about this. Just some more conceptualizations and metaphors and stuff. A quote-unquote sleeping person is someone who is really only aware of their body and typically their immediate environment. And what I mean by that is their awareness extends to the fact that they are filling this vessel, this human body. They are aware that life begins at birth, and they are aware that life ends at death. And so in their experience, they tend to react and not respond. An important distinction there that we'll talk about later. They will respond to changes in their environment, to seek out food, water, safety, comfort, etc., etc. And so a sleeping person, if you imagine like a level or stage of consciousness, this person exists as the ego. They exist as the character. They exist at the level of their programming, meaning any given day, this person's personality is entirely dependent on all of the sum of the prior experiences they have had until that day. Meaning if a experience recently has happened that was negative enough, if that experience were to happen again this day, they would most likely react in a negative manner because of the prior programming and trauma or whatever you want to call it that they've experienced. So sleeping person very much stuck at the level of ego, their character. They tend to behave and make choices primarily for survival instincts or for, again, things that they can only see in front of their face. Like a sleeping person would not be able to conceptualize that another person needed money more than them if they were also in a tight spot for money. The empathy or understanding of the situation, the context wouldn't really matter. They'd be like, I need that $5. It's mine. If I don't have this $5, I have nothing. So now that we have a baseline of something that we can compare to, for the very least, again, if you need more information, go back. Or I'd be happy to talk more about this in the future. Now let's talk about the concept of waking up or what that looks like. Again, as I said in my last video, and I'll say in this video and many to come, these are all overgeneralizations to try to make these concepts that are very large, very simple. Again, I'd like to try to talk about this stuff at a level where you can explain this to your child and have like sincere, heartfelt conversations with them as well. All right, now that we have our baseline, let's talk a little bit about what is the concept of waking up. Again, I have talked about this a little bit in my last video. I may have said it a little differently. So what is waking up? Waking up is very much a process, and it is a process that has no endpoint. There is no finish line to reach. There is no quote unquote top of the mountain. There is no thing to accomplish. The goal is to simply be sleepless in your waking state, as we've talked about before. So let's move into this. So where the sleeping person was only really aware primarily of their body and their environment, a person who is quote unquote waking up is, always has been, or has become aware of the fact that there is a greater existence present inside of them, within them. You can conceptualize this as a soul, spirit, whatever you'd like to call it in your belief system, but they are aware of this greater existence, or their soul, as I like to imagine. And in this state of greater awareness, what they are allowed to tap into is the concept of what many people will call an internal monologue. And what I mean by that is when their thought speaks, something listens. It goes back to that old The old metaphor or the old story of when a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? And what this internal monologue is essentially is that when their thought speaks, something listens. If I ask you to say hello on the count of three, 1, 2, 3, and you heard that voice in your head say hello, what is speaking? Your thought is speaking, but what is listening to that sound? If a noise is made and no one is there to hear it, it's just sound. It's just waves in the air. There is no noise. The noise only happens when there is an observer present. That's something to pick up on that sound that is being generated by those thoughts or by that mind or by that brain or however you'd like to imagine that. So the concept of the internal monologue, I think, kind of is unlocked when you remember, when you put those pieces back together, when you start to combine all of those parts and realize that you are part of some greater existence, or there is some greater existence or awareness of something in you. When you realize that you are not just the body, when you are not just this ego character, you realize that you are the observer of this body and this ego character, or that you are remembering that awareness and regaining that authority and that sovereignty over yourself. It's not always guaranteed, but once you gain access to this internal monologue, if you want to consider it like a skill or something, like in a video game, if that helps you conceptualize it a little better. Once you have this internal monologue, well, then when things happen to you that you used to react to, now you can reflect on what's happening. You can imagine, using your internal monologue, the consequences of your actions. And instead of reacting, you can respond. You can choose how you want this situation to go. You can decide what's going to happen or what order of events is going to take place, or at least the part of the events that are in your hands, your responsibility, your control. And finally, with this conscious reflection or this awareness, this internal monologue, this ability to look back and reflect on the order of events that has led you down the path. And with this internal monologue, once you allow yourself the time and space and energy to do so, you can begin this process of conscious reflection and awareness, allowing you to do the inner work. So if your ego and character up until this point in your life has been determined by reacting to your body or your environment or changes in your safety or situation, well, with this conscious reflection, you can begin to rewrite the script of your character. You have to remember that in this movie production that we're all taking part of, in this experience that we are here to have, you are not only the character in the movie, you're also the actor playing the character. You are not one, but every single audience member in the crowd. You are the director, you are the producer, you are the screenwriter, you are the sound operator, you are the janitor on the set, you are every single staff member, audience member, observer. You're the number one super fan of the movie. Once it gets released, you are every single thing. And once you step back and you realize that greater existence, and you gain access to your internal monologue, your level of existence or consciousness development, or whatever you want to conceptualize it, where your thought speaks and something listens, well, then you can start your conscious reflection. You can begin inner work by reflecting on your childhood and your adulthood and all of the things that have led your character to be developed. You can then begin to rewrite those memories. You can face old traumas and you can decide that they no longer have control over you. You're not going to respond in a certain way in certain situations because of something that happened to you anymore. Now you want to rise above it. You want to change yourself. And with that conscious reflection and that awareness, you are able to perform that inner work. You're able to overcome those walls and continue walking in whatever direction you'd like to. It allows access to a certain level of authority and sovereignty over yourself. So now that we have a concept of what waking up is, let's move on to how someone might do something like that. How does one wake up? Well, to be quite honest, we could talk at a long length about how one wakes up or does not wake up. Again, we're just overgeneralizing here to keep it short. How does one wake up? For some folks, it could be triggered. You know, some people can have a near-death experience. Some people can, not that I condone this at all, do not condone this, but substance use has allowed people to reach certain aspects of that. There are folks who have, traumatic events that happen in their lifetime, like they may lose a job or a loved one or something close to them that causes them to start searching or seeking for something greater. It could be, a practiced out-of-body experience, like with Darius and all the work that his group has been doing to spread awareness. But to truly simplify this down, how does one wake up? Well, it's simple. It's very simple. There are many paths up the mountain, but every single path begins with one step. And that first step is always simply making the choice. There's a great webtoon, cartoon comic, however you'd want to call it, on YouTube called The Big Les Show. And there's this certain scene, for the ones who know, you'll know what I'm talking about, where Les goes through what you would call an enlightenment. And he looks at his Sasquatch friend and asks him, how do I do this? How do I make my dreams a reality? How do I be happy? How do I create that reality that I want to live in? So he is the ego in this experience asking himself, how does he do this? And Sassy just kind of looks at him and asks him, what's the first thing you do in the morning? You wake up. And once you wake up and you decide, how do I want to live my life? Do I want to be happy? How do I make myself happy? How do I do this? Well, it all starts with a choice to make yourself happy. That's it. It's really that simple. It is a choice. You choose. You make that choice. You wake up and you start searching. You wake up and you reach out to a loved one or a family member or friend. You wake up and you change your routine. You wake up and you take any number of steps to start changing your life. It's easy. You just have to choose. You don't have to be a victim of your circumstances. You don't have to be at the whimsy of your environment anymore. You can choose how you want to respond to things. You don't have to react. It's all a choice. It's that simple. There is a wonderful illustration that hopefully I will figure out how to overlay over myself right here. But essentially, this illustration shows an individual who is experiencing life. They are down here in the trenches. They are going through like a hedge maze, essentially. And while they are in the hedge maze, they are experiencing it from the first person perspective. They're playing as the ego and the character. And so when they look around them, they see all these giant walls, which could be the problems in your life, money, your love life, your loved ones, your family, your job, your car, your lack of a car, whatever it may be. These problems look so big and so overwhelming to you. But then after meditation, which is one of the most commonly used and quote unquote best ways to make that choice, to wake up, to reconnect with your higher self, to become aware of your greater existence. After meditation or self-love, it allows you to take that step back. And so in the next frame of the comic, the perspective has changed to a third person view. And from up above, you can not only see the exact answer to get out of the hedge maze, but you can also see how small and insignificant and tiny those problems really were compared to the greater existence that is you as an eternal soul, here having a temporary physical 3D experience. So truly, how does one wake up? It's easy. The moment you choose to reflect and make intentional choices in your life is you embarking on the path of waking up. It is a process. It is a process that never ends. There is no goal. There is no finish line. There is no predetermined rate that you're going to travel at or that you're supposed to travel at. There is no limit to how far you may or may not travel. As Lisa M. Harrison said, it is an individual inside job. It is each person's story. It is each person's path up the mountain. And by golly, is that a big mountain, and there are many paths, and there is no summit to reach at all. And finally, who makes this choice? I got a surprise. Who makes the choice? It's you. It's you, beloved. Nobody can make the choice to sit down and do that internal work for you. Talking to others will help you. I'm sure it will. People can share knowledge, but what they can't share is wisdom. Wisdom can only be gained by taking that knowledge and applying it to your reality and seeing what happens. It's all about gathering and gaining experience. And when you start walking the path, when you take your first step up, it's all about making that conscious effort to reflect and make intentional choices with everything that you do. From what you eat for your breakfast, if you have breakfast, to the last thing you do in your day. If you're stretching, if you're taking care of your body, if you're treating your loved ones well, if you're taking care of your 3D responsibilities and things that you have to do. And where is this choice made? I have another hint for you. It's in you. It's within. It can't be made for you. It's something that you have to come to on your own conclusion. Again, it goes back to that quote. It's an individual inside job. For each person, that story is going to look different. They're going to have a different sequence of events that may or may not lead them to this greater realization. They will have a different upbringing. They will have a different traumatic or non-traumatic moment. Some people can just glide right through and then maybe notice some beautiful birds in the sky and see them flying, like those insanely beautiful, maybe I'll find a little clip, flocks of murmurations. And sometimes when I look at things like that, I can't help but wonder that there has to be something more. There's no way all of those birds with their simple eyes are flying and avoiding, and there's not a single one that's coming in contact with each other. That was one of the things that made me start questioning the simple 3D reality that we're told about. But anyway, beyond the metaphysical stuff, let's go back to this message. So lastly, why does one want to wake up? What's the point? You know, maybe my ego or my character is comfortable. Maybe I have a high-paying job. Maybe my material needs are satisfied, and I think that's enough. Well, why does one want to wake up? I have a simple question for you. Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Do you sleep well at night? How does your heart feel at the end of your day? Are you tired? Are you bored? What brings you joy? What do you do with your free time? The questions go on and on. And the answers to those questions lead me directly back to the answer to this question. Why does one want to wake up? Because when you open your eyes, when you start to bring lucidity to your reality, when you start to bring awareness, when you start to bring presence to where you are and what's happening around you, then at any given moment, if you're not happy, you can change the situation. You can say that thing. You can make that decision. You can walk away from that uncomfortable place. You can change your life, and you can do it intentionally. And once you make that first decision, you can walk away and you can think about it and you can say, I did, or I didn't like how that went. I'm going to change it again, so that when the next time that situation comes up, you can respond differently, and you can learn, and you can grow, and you can evolve. And the next thing you know, you may be happy. You may feel fulfilled. You may sleep like a newborn infant at night. But it's all because now you are no longer the victim of your circumstances. You are no longer at the whimsy of your environment. You have taken that power back. You have taken that authority back, that sovereignty, that freedom from external influence or control. And now, as a sovereign soul who's walking that path, you can push your shoulders back and you can keep your head up high, and you can choose to live your life and have your experience however you like. Nobody has power over you. Nobody has control over you. It's just you and yourself. Once you begin changing on the inside, that change starts flowing out, and you will start experiencing that in your reality. You know, people always say that we're all mirrors of ourselves in our reality, and the law of vibration and all these hermetic universal things always come back to us receiving what we put out. And so in that case, if you are growing and evolving and learning to love yourself and accept yourself and change who you are because you want to improve, and you're acting in that integrity and that authority and that authenticity, then who can stop you? Nobody. Nobody ever could stop you except for you. That's why it always comes back to the choice. With that, I will say another famous quote: be the change you wish to see in the world. If it is an individual inside job, then I hope we're all doing our parts. Peace.